It's always strange when you see your name so big. So, welcome. You're probably getting a little bit hungry, and there is now just before lunch a guy standing in front of you with this title. There is no sales pitch. I can imagine what he's going to say, because we're doing this, of course, all the time. It would be wonderful if you would just enter a room, a company where we just have to say, hey, these are the services we offer. Well, that's great, just sign up. Of course, you're going to pitch, but it's the way of how you should do it. That's why I'm here and what this keynote will be all about. Before I start, I would like to share this with you, like Frederick also told about this in his presentation. It's about being an audience-centric. It's about thinking about your buyer. It's about putting them first. And although we all know this, we also must admit that we are not always doing that, and that it's a very hard thing to do. So today I'm not here to tell all of you of what you should do to become an audience-centric company. You're with a lot of people and you have different products and different services, so it would be kind of difficult. But more to look at what it does for sales and sales enablement, and also for the entire organization and how it can help you further on. So that's a bit the idea for today, because I'm from BBC. As Teresa said, like, we are a B2B agency, and we help our customers to come up with unique experiences to bring towards all their different personas throughout the entire buyer journey. And as we know in B2B, that can be like a few weeks, a few months, but even a few years. It can take a while. So what are we going to do, and how can we make sure that sales, but not only sales, everybody is on the right track of serving the buyer and not like their own department or their own things to do. So the claim in general that people say, like, hey, if you have the right methodology and the right tool set up and the implementation done, it can be kind of easy once you've set it up. I'm not saying that talking about methodology is easy, but once you're there, and the truth is that in practice it's not. So when we talk with customers about becoming more buyer-centric or audience-centric, it's always like, yeah, we had a consultant came here and he had a matrix, and we followed everything, but it's still very different. And why is it? Because it's not just the fact that you have to have a plan, but you also need to change the culture of your organization. And if possible, not only sales and marketing, but the entire organization. And that's not easy, not easy at all. Let it be very clear. Because if you, for example, look at sales, they have, Frederick already told it, like they have a lot of things to do. It's not only knowing what marketing is going to do, it's what the product team is going to launch, the updates on a product, the price changes, that finance company, they have to know all of this. And then, of course, they also have their own tools that they use, like their CRM they need to fill in with all the information and all the other things that we have the data, that we know where you are. And the most important thing for a salesperson is, of course, to do what they're hired for. It's like pitching and selling and preparing their meetings. So they have already so much things to do. And thinking about all the other things besides their job is such a huge thing. If we look at marketing, for example, well, they have a bit the same. They do their research. They know what customers are looking for or buyers are looking for, which is successful, but they have to prepare and position themselves, doing all this work. And then, of course, generate the leads. Going to events can be offline, can be online, delivering them, nurture them through marketing automation. And finally, when they have their sales qualified leads, they're kind of happy that they can say, like, hey, we've reached what we had to do. This is for you, sales, so go ahead, go get them. And management says, yeah, okay, we have a plan because we think it's important that you all align, so let's have meetings together, so we talk about it. But to be honest, we all know that a lot of companies do have that plan to do so, but it's damn hard to actually work together, because sometimes goals that are set up are really still posted in these different silos, if we can call it that way. And please don't forget these people either. I'm just having a few ones. There's also customer service, and there is like finance, and there is HR, and there is product development. All these people have to know where they have specific goals, where they need to work on, but they're in their system. And what we say is that you blow it all up, and we have like all different types of touch points across the entire buyer journey. And it's up to the entire team to work together on them and bringing and linking them together. Okay, fine, that's cool. We know this. I think a lot of people already know it. Let's go for it, and let's move forward. First of all, how is your company structured? If you look at the buyer, where is the buyer and where is he treating the company? Most companies are structured like this. Like, there is a C-level. There's on top of it, CEO, and then you have there the VP of sales with his different regions, the VP of customer support, the VP of marketing, and they have all the different parts. And when you ask, like, yeah, and where is then the buyer? Well, once he signs, for example, he's then with customer support, and then he can touch and they help him, and they try to make the best out of it, but eventually it should be all over the place. You should have really a plan where you can take everything together and do not forget your buyer and where it is. And to be honest, I started 12 years ago at BBC, and when at that time, when we created stuff, it was more like, yeah, this is who we are, these are our products, these are our services, put this on our website, for example, and this is how we sell. A lot of people are now already working this way. We have our personas, and we have the different touch points, and that's true. So we create how persona X, an operations manager, or persona Y, a purchase manager, or persona Z, a manager or general manager, for example, gets in touch with us, and we all bring that together. We create our well-known funnel, and this is where all the people, all the personas go through. And everybody's, or most of the companies are already doing this, and it goes really well. But the problem is that you think in personas, and you say like, hey, all operations manager do it this way. Which is not the case, because every person is different and has a different road in how they came to you and a different approach on those things. So what I would like to do so is I'm going to show you somebody, and imagine that those are your buyers. Those are the persons you're going to see. So I'm going to introduce you to your buyers and their message.
Dear marketer, dear sales expert, dear manager, there is no sales pitch. There are only buyer stories, pitch perfect and unique every time, and never ending.
So it's true. If you look at, for example, let's say as persona, the operations manager, and he or she is involved, and you have all the different touch points that marketing, sales, HR, everybody creates, and there are, but you don't know how it will go. For example, you saw the first buyer, and the first buyer, he or she is doing this. This is the road that he or she is doing. She comes to your website, does specific things. You get the data out of it, and you have your operations manager doing that operations manager doing a specific thing. But then the second one comes, and you think, yeah, they're going to do the same, but the way of the direction they're doing is completely different. Although they have maybe the same touch points, that the way of how they touch those points is different. And then there is a third one, maybe, the same persona as well, and he or she is much more critical, wants to know much more, gets more in touch with you. The process takes, instead of like 2 months, like a half a year, but it's the same persona and same thing. So what we say is that all these things are, of course, touch points, and you're pitching, especially when sales comes in face-to-face, but it's always like a fight to get their attention and to bring that unique story for them and to make it appealing for them and relevant for them. So this is why we say, like Teresa said, like, it's not that you don't have to pitch anymore. Of course, you still have to pitch. But it's like you do not have your one presentation or one story that you bring, because every person, even for that specific persona who you created for, has still had a different history with your company, your brand, in getting to know each other. So if we go back to those three personas and their touch points, yeah, the first one, for example, he came to an AdWords campaign, he came to your website, watched specific product pages, and read a testimonial. Okay, maybe came back later on. Then you filled in the contact form to have a sales visit. Now, when you have that visit, it's very important to know what has happened before. So, because otherwise you're gonna probably do your pitch. I'm seeing an operations manager. This is what I say when I meet an operations manager. While the second one came completely from a different direction. He had a problem on his plant, but one of his best friends is also an operations manager in a totally different plant, and he just called him like, I have this huge problem. Can you maybe help me what I should do? Well, we work with company X, and their price is good, their service is wonderful. Maybe you should just contact them. So what they do is they go to that contact page, they call it, they refer like, hey, I got your details from person X. So know this when you have your sales pitch. It's really important to help the sales by doing that. And the last one can be by accident coming to your website, Grooming Solution, having maybe something with a chatbot, that there was a conversation, and all these things are there. So even a call with a teleconference line that you have maybe in your heart can be really relevant, and all these people must work together on being a buyer-centric organization. And it's important that most people say, yeah, in the beginning, this is for marketing, because this is where we don't know yet who it is, and we're nurturing the lead, and here it is for sales, and then they will have the face-to-face conversations, and that's true. And I'm not going to tell you that this graph is the right graph for everything, but you should imagine that marketing is green and sales is blue and management is purple. Like, you should be involved on all the things you're doing constantly and working on common goals and not on the goals of your specific department as well. The alignment we all talked about. Again, I'm not telling a lot of new things, but the truth is that as a buyer, you want to be filled. Understand that you understand who you are and what you have been living. You know you are tracked, you know you have been downloading and seeing things. Why don't you do something with that and give that to us like it's not like a general sales pitch you bring to me? And then you can say like, okay, Dieter, that's really interesting. So can you then help us a little bit further how we can become more audience-centric, how we can change, because it's a culture change. It's not something you just do by night. It's something that's really hard, and I'm not saying that I have the answer here, but I want to give you not 12, but 3 ideas that you can take with you, and maybe even if you have a colleague here during lunch, talk about it already, and discuss it. And the first thing that I want to talk about is something really simple, but it's like internal mobility within your company. Think about it. How strong is your internal mobility, switching from positions? And I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago, it's actually when I was working on this presentation, 2 weeks ago, I got a call from one of our customers, Jacobs Stahl, Jacobs Professional. We work for them in Belgium, but also globally in Utrecht in the Netherlands. And she called me that we had won a project, a proposal that we did. And she said, but I'm not going to be the one doing the follow-up because I'm going to switch from departments. She didn't say, get promoted. She said, switch from departments. She said, instead of being marketing now for 4 years, I'm going to sales, because we believe that it's important that there is a kind of change and that sales get the insights from marketing. And this is internal mobility. And of course, you can say, yeah, for very big companies, it's maybe easier, but it doesn't have to be like a permanent switch. It can be maybe for a month or a week or even a day. Another customer admitted to say, like, after 4 years, I've been one day together with the sales on the road, and that one day was so important and interesting for me that I've learned that what we are creating at Marketing, so that internal mobility can really help you becoming more audience-centric since you meet the customer and since you are. It's the same for a manager who will sit maybe for one day, only one day in his marketing department and hearing and feeling what they are constantly undertaking. So it's very interesting to think about internal mobility and how you can do it. You can do it big and say, let's switch, but you also can do it maybe step by step, doing a pilot maybe for a week, a month, or even a day. And if that's not even possible, just switch desks. Or maybe it's only for a week. I do it a lot at the agency as well. Like, I'm sitting between the studio, between the creative people, the commercial people, and things come up like, hey, this customer has this, how maybe we can change this and help them further in that. So think about internal mobility. The second thing that I want to talk about is do not think anymore in tasks and assignments, but what if you would work with challenges? It's proven that if you ask to people across different departments like to work on specific challenges, that they are much more productive and innovative than giving them tasks, saying you should do. We're going to launch a campaign, you do an AdWords campaign, you do the email, you do this. No, instead of doing that, you're asking like, hey, we have this specific challenge, we must launch this product in a new region, how would you do that? And not only with your department, sales or marketing, but like with different people. So think about it, how it can work, and again, you do not have to do it for everything at once, but you can start with a pilot project at a campaign or a new launch or something to think about it, how it can change the way of how you would solve these things. And it gives commitment to the people as well, because they can choose. The idea is to have, for example, 10 challenges, and one person can say, I want to work on these 2 challenges, and that you have different teams from different departments working together to becoming a more buyer-centric, more audience-centric organization, thinking about that aspect. And the last thing that I want to share with you is learning and knowledge. I think it's clear for everybody. We also have Chris here about training your people. And what I want to do is not saying that you should train about how your products and services work, but how new things can be spread throughout the company. Because we have the obligation these days to be constantly with the new things, the technologies and other things that are coming up. So what can we do about it? To give you a concrete, it mustn't be courses always. People think that, oh, we must send our people to trainings and courses. No, it must not be that. It can perfectly be that, an e-learning module or with videos that you help your people. Because 70% of what you learn comes through your day-to-day job with your colleagues. 20% of what you learn comes from informal feedback from customers, suppliers, and others. And only 10% of what you professionally learn comes from courses. So yes, they are important, but it's not that training means external courses. To give you an example, at BBC ourselves, we have at least once a week, we call it an AHA. It's a training, an internal training given by one of our employees. So at least once a year you should do it. We're with 40, so we have like a whole year covered, at least once. And the idea is that you do not have to tell us what you learned in training. It's something that you actually practiced, experimented during working hours, and you bring that in a presentation of half an hour and 50 minutes of Q&A, and that's it. And it can be for everybody, but it can also be for specific departments, a performance team, a digital team, whatever it is. So by doing so, we film it as well, and then we can upload it to the system so that everybody who is not there can also see it later or when you're on holiday, but also for the new people coming and onboarding, that they have all the different types of topics and they can dive directly into it. And all with the focus of becoming more buyer-centric, helping the customer better, changing maybe our services, updating things we want to do. So think about these three things. Think about internal mobility and how that can help in putting the buyer or the customer first, because of course it's not only the prospect, it's also upselling in B2B and selling extra services or renewals and all these things. Think about what if we stop only assigning tasks, but also talk about challenges, and think about how you will, the things you learn from all of this, how you will communicate these also internally. And that will really help you in understanding better of how we can go towards a story, and that's where it all goes, of course, to that buyer, and towards a more unique pitch-perfect story. So I gained some time, which is good. Solid sales conversion starts with the buyer. I'm, again, not saying anything new, but if we all are honest and we look at ourselves and our companies, we all know there is still a lot of work to do. So surround yourself with good people, be clever and strict about it. Do not think in silos, really align not only with sales and marketing, which is a very big start, but with everybody within the company. Try to explain as well why we are doing this, because if you don't do anything, somebody else might do it. I remember Steven van Bellegem last year standing here and presenting that the shares from Tesco dropped like 15-20% when Amazon announced that they bought Whole Foods. They didn't do anything. I mean, like, they didn't do anything wrong, but they didn't do anything. So they were afraid that the customer-centric of Amazon would suddenly then go to Whole Foods and that they would. So it's not only that you should do it because you are a perfectly healthy company, but it can always help. So think about the different, and don't forget that what each of your buyer is doing, that this is a kind of unique thing. That you should think about which road did he do, and when you are meeting with the customer, that you don't tell a general sales pitch from a specific vertical, but that you actually know this has been happening. You can use the tools like Showpad for it with AI-driven content recommendations, that you do not tell the wrong things. Please do so and make your customer happy and bigger, that he will also be like a word of mouth and that he can promote yourself as well. So I hope that this keynote from like 15, 20 minutes was a kind of more inspirational thing that you can take with you. Please talk about it, think about the ideas that we gave you. If you want to talk about it, we can do a question, or otherwise we can always, you can see me around here. So I do not have a red jacket. It's a very good idea, Chris, by the way, to wear something very recognizable. But you will see me or my colleagues somewhere. So thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, you can always ask it.